Test 1, 2. Hello, hello. This is going to be Just Human 346. And the fam has gone to bed. Kids are clean and tucked in. And the wife has gone to bed. And I'm up because I got some interesting news on the Comey docket. And then we have some interesting news thanks to an article from the New York Times, which I just read. And I just did a thread on it. And I've decided to burn the midnight oil, or in this case, the midnight lava lamp. And got a cup of coffee here, a big cup of coffee. And I got to take you guys through the latest filings in US v. Comey and some really exciting clues that are in this New York Times article that just dropped. The New York Times article is not about the exciting clues. You have to suss out the exciting clues that are in it. It's not that difficult. But for RussiaGate nerds like me, it's exciting. Right? They're pretty obvious, I guess. All right. So wanted to get this done also. I was hoping to do an episode this evening. I'm getting started on it much later than I intended. I intended to start on it a couple hours ago. But I got distracted looking at news, and I'm glad I did because I ended up finding this New York Times article. Okay, so I hope you guys are doing well. Welcome, and thank you to everybody who has recently. I need to go here. Everybody who has recently gone to my YouTube and signed up, I really appreciate it. I've gained like 200. I gained almost 200 followers since I got my YouTube back. I do want to get it monetized. I do want to grow it and do just as much with it as I can. And I would really appreciate it, even if YouTube's not how you're primarily going to consume my podcast or my videos. I'd really appreciate you giving me a follow over there, subscribing, and just checking it out over there. And hitting like and share and all those things. If you have trouble, people have always complained to me about Rumble and Roku. That's a pretty regular complaint I get from a number of different people, and have for a long time, that they can't get Rumble to work well with their TV or their phone or whatever. Well, try YouTube. And I would really appreciate it if you guys would follow me over there, and thank you to everybody who has. I haven't made playlists over on YouTube yet. I have them on Rumble. I'll get to it on YouTube as soon as I have. Well, I guess I can go ahead and make one for United States v. Comey, and then one that's just generally my podcast. I'm not sure. Well, I guess I am pretty sure. I'm not going to upload all of my episodes to YouTube. Like, I'm not going to upload my back catalog. I just don't really see a point in it. Maybe there'll be some stuff I find that I'm like, a clip or something that I think is really good that I should put on there. But I don't really want to go backwards. I just want to go forwards. So just the most recent episodes are on there, and I'll keep uploading from this point on. And thank you to everybody who has followed me, and all the other places are great. Really appreciate it. Everybody who's listening on Apple and Spotify. By the way, if you listen on those places like Apple and Spotify, I would appreciate a review. That really does help me out to be more present and more searchable on those platforms. And thank you to everybody who's bought me coffee at Ko-Fi.com. All my supporters, everybody who's bought honey, everybody who's bought bootleg products or chili salsa and seasoning. It is chili season. Finally, it's hoodie weather, and it's a good time of year to have coffee on your front or back porch, and to have chili on those cold days and enjoy this weather. I love fall and I love winter. Spring's pretty good too, but summer is not. I'm not a fan of summer. And most of all, thank you to everybody who's a paid subscriber at justhuman.substack.com. That is the best way to support what I do. $7 a month keeps my coffee full of high quality, high grade caffeine beans, and keeps me addicted to that, as well as the documents. So, all right, that's enough of that. Enough of me rambling about those things. Let's go to Comey docket first. I'm feeling like there's a hair like in my mouth or something. All right, let me refresh it again. Make sure there's nothing new since I last looked at it. Nope. Okay. We now have 45 docket entries. It seems like only yesterday we had just like 10. But now we've got 45. This thing is happening. All right, when I last talked to you, we were talking about protective orders and discovery and all those things. And since we last talked, the judge has entered an order denying the government's motion for discovery and going with Comey's, which wasn't that different. They weren't that different. And if you notice, like lots of media on the right ran with the judge is shutting down DOJ and shut down Bondi and ruling in favor of Comey. Grr, that judge is so crooked. And I'm just going to tell you guys, I said this to someone in a comment and they scoffed at me, which I didn't really expect anything different. That's how the internet goes. But I'm just going to tell you, every single case I followed, every case, which has been a good number of them, and those of you who have been watching me for a long time, for the past like 3+ years, 4 years, you know, every single case we follow, people say the judge is bad. Judges can't catch a break. It doesn't matter what happens. Either one or the other side says the judge is crooked, or they both say the judge is crooked. And that's just how it goes. They look at who appointed them, and if they don't like that person, they say the judge is crooked. And if anything happens where the judge denies the person they like or approves or grants something from the person they don't like or whatever, the judge is bad, the judge is crooked, the judge is paid off, the judge is part of the Illuminati, blah, 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 blah. It's the same thing. It's the easiest cop-out, low IQ take that you could possibly have. And in this case, it's very much that, because there was basically no difference whatsoever between the discovery proposals from the DOJ and Comey. The difference was that DOJ wanted to narrow it a little bit more as to who Comey's counsel could show the materials to, and they wanted to limit it. It's not anything I haven't seen before. We saw this in Trump's case. We saw it in Trump's case, in the documents case. And I think that's just the nature of it. DOJ is always going to err on the side of trying to limit who has access and view and is able to view the discovery they're turning over, especially in something that involves classified information. And the defendant is always going to want to be able to see as much as possible and make copies if possible, take it home with them to study if possible, show it to potential witnesses and their counsel and their friends and their family, and leak it to media. I don't know. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's too tempting. It's too tempting to go to that. And then that gets to the concern DOJ would have, right? So this is the nature of the adversarial system. It's the nature of it. And alleging that a judge is crooked because he does something which is totally reasonable is just but you don't like the person that it went in favor of, is just a cop-out. It's just like whenever you're watching a sport. This is the thing. Americans love sports, and they take that sport mentality of my team versus their team, and the ref must be crooked, and they put that onto politics. They put that onto the judicial system. And some of that's because that's what they're familiar with. The other thing is that they're just human. So anyway. All right. Since that happened, there's been some few orders, and I'm not going to take you through every document point by point. Instead, I'm going to take you to my threads that I've done about those things, because that's going to get me into my latest thread and the articles I want to show you tonight. So we're going off the docket, but we're jumping to my threads in order to do it. So Now that the discovery order has been approved, discovery has begun to flow, and on Monday, the 13th of October, yesterday, all the Rule 16 material should have been turned over to Comey. Now that still leaves the Brady material, which is material that would help the defendant out. In this case, that would be things, probably, I would assume, that would be things like Durham, documents from Durham's investigation that found no criminality, or that found no chargeable offense, or did not find evidence that there was a chargeable offense. And Durham's memo, which I would very much like to see on the media leak investigations, that would include interviews possibly that IG Horowitz did and transcripts of those interviews. And the investigation that occurred into this, which did not recommend charges, that recommended against charging Comey, that might include those documents. And then there's another type of discovery that's turned over. People tend to think about this that, and I did too until I started following court cases. It always gets kind of dumbed down in news reports and TV shows and movies that they just talk about discovery. Why won't you turn over discovery? And whenever you watch defendants or court TV type stuff, the defendant will always complain about how I didn't get all the discovery. They're hiding something from me. And what's not made clear is that there's different types of discovery. Rule 16 is all of the stuff the government has against you. It's what they're going to build the case off of against the defendant. Brady material is the stuff that is that the government has that goes to your innocence. It actually doesn't help their case. And then Jinx material is the communications that the law enforcement and investigators and the attorneys had, their communications and discussions about the case. So in the Docs case and in the Jack Smith's case against Trump, there was a lot of that going on because Trump's team was really getting at an angle that the prosecution was vindictive and selective. And so we got the communications between NARA and the IG and the White House and DOJ. And we could see stuff like that in this case in Comey, because he's definitely filing a motion to dismiss for vindictive and selective prosecution. So he's going to want to have access, like what memos, what letters, what documents did the White House send to DOJ or to this U.S. Attorney's Office? What emails went back and forth discussing the prosecution? Those things could come out and reveal selective and vindictive prosecution, especially in light of the other memos that were made by Durham, were made by other investigators, were made by this U.S. Attorney's Office in Virginia, saying there wasn't enough here to bring charges against Comey. Anyway, so those are the different types of discovery. And the first type is what has been turned over, the stuff that they have against Comey, which should mean that now Comey's counsel is perfectly clear on who person 1, 2, and 3 are, and exactly what the lies are, and how this case is going to be prosecuted, or the type of prosecution, what facts they have, or alleged and alleged criminality they're going to articulate to a jury. Making sure Hercules is chewing on something he's okay to be chewing on. It's his green ball. I may have to stop him in a minute because he's going at it. All right. The other thing that happened is the CISO, or the CISO, the Chief Information Security Officer, who is going to handle the classified information in this case, has been approved by the judge. So now classified information can be turned over, or I should say, defense counsel and Comey now have access to the classified information in this case that's going to be used against him. The first piece of discovery we learned in the last episode was just a single page, and it was produced to the defense at the end of the week. And I opined that I suspect that single page had to do with the appointment of Lindsay Halligan. And the reason I think that is because in a discussion here, I want to show you my thinking. Let me show you. I think it's in the government's discovery motion. It might be in Comey's. It's out there. I'm a pro, so I already had this pulled up, right? Pretty sure it was worded single page. Let me search the docket. Oh, maybe it's not. Maybe it's just one page. Yep, it was one page, not single page. I wrote it as single page in my thread. It's one page. Okay, so Control F, one page. All right, so right here it says naturally some of this discovery will inform the basis for a vindictive and selective prosecution that is to be filed on October 20th. As of the date of this filing, the defense has received one page of discovery. It didn't tell us what that was. Well, if you look at the government's motion for discovery, I believe that is where you find a clue about the appointment of Halligan. Maybe it wasn't that. Let me go right here. Let me go back. I'll just search the whole docket instead of searching every page. I think it's going to say appointing Halligan, if I remember it correctly. I can't spell. Okay, here it is. Here it is. I was right. It is the government's motion. Okay, for discovery. It was in that. All right. All right. I needed to search appointment, not appointing. Okay. At the initial discussion between the defense and the prosecution's team, when they were talking about the discovery process and the protective agreement for that discovery, how they were going to handle it and protect it from being leaked to the media or shown to people who shouldn't otherwise see it, or members of Comey's team who didn't have the clearance to see it, which they've now got the clearance, I believe. Right here in this filing, it said at the initial discussion, the defendant would not agree with the discovery agreement and the discovery protective agreement until the government provided information on the U.S. attorney's appointment and the identities of person 1 and person 3 on the indictment. That evening, the government provided the defendant with the standard Eastern District of Virginia discovery order and the proposed protective agreement via email. They acknowledged the receipt of this, and then we learned in that other filing that they got the single page of discovery. I think that single page has to do with the appointment of Halligan. Does that make sense? Because Comey's team said, we're not going to go forward with anything until you give us a memo showing, like, the document that shows Lindsay Halligan's appointment, that makes it official, and tell us the identities of person 1 and person 3. So I think that's what that one page did, because then after that is when the filings came in. This was docket entry 30. It was then after docket entry number 30 that they filed their response, and then the order came through from the judge. And then on that same day, the motion for a protective order on the discovery came through, and then Comey responded to that, and then DOJ gave consent to the protective order, basically saying, yeah, we agree with that. And then there was a consent motion for the SIPA briefing schedule the next day, and then the memorandums of understanding started to be signed by Comey's team, and everything started happening so as to facilitate the rest of the discovery being turned over. because they had to have the discovery agreement and the protective order in place first. Okay. So that's my thinking there. Tonight, meaning last night, prosecutors filed a motion. This was after I recorded my show, after it was out, after you guys were enjoying it and liking it and commenting and sharing it around, right? Tonight, meaning last night, prosecutors filed a motion asking for a filter team to be used in the handling of certain quarantined evidence, which is potentially protective material. Okay, this is the first like exciting document nerd, court case nerd thing that I'm showing you tonight. There's more than one thing. This is the first. All right, I get excited about filter teams because filter teams mean that there's some potentially privileged material that might be attorney-client privileged or work product privilege, and they bring in this third party to filter that material. And those filter teams sometimes catch some interesting things, and we've seen interesting battles with that in the Sussman case and in Trump's case. Of note here with this filter team motion, which actually I'm going to go to, I'm just going to go to it right here. First motion to implementate a filter team. Okay. So in this, they're saying, look, we've acquired some potentially privileged material. They're not saying it is attorney-client privileged, but it may be. And there's a reason why they think it may be, okay? And so we want a filter team to come in and look at it and provide a third party that will allow for those potential disputes to be resolved. And what will happen is the filter team will go through the evidence and they'll look at what may be privileged, meaning attorney-client privilege, attorney work product privilege, or similar. They'll go to the person who may have a claim of privilege. In this instance, it might be Comey. It might be someone else, but it's probably Comey. And we'll say, hey, do you want to assert your privilege over this specific page, this specific item, this specific sentence, whatever it is? And he'll either say yes or no, or he may say yes, and then the government will want to challenge the basis of it, and then the judge will come in and adjudicate it as to whether the judge will look at it and say whether or not it actually is privileged material. Okay. Defense, Comey's team objects to the implementation of the protocol of this filter team. There's a reason for it. I'll get to in a minute. Actually, they haven't filed yet to articulate their opposition to it. I think it has to do with just a schedule thing, and I'll show. That's what I'm going to get to. They may file a motion that articulates something bigger than that, but I think their objection is not that they don't want to have the opportunity to claim privilege over certain things. I think it's the when this happens. The team that would be looking at this, the proposed team, is 2 assistant United States attorneys and their support staff from a federal district that is separate from the Eastern District of Virginia and the Eastern District of North Carolina. So it's going to be people that are not in the offices involved in the case, just so that there's a further step of separation. Okay, so check it out. Comey's indicted on September 25th. The government has evidence in its custody already that includes potentially privileged material because the evidence was obtained from an attorney. Currently, the evidence is quarantined, and it includes an image of a computer hard drive, an iCloud download, the backup of an iPhone, and the backup of an iPad. This is going to be referred to in this filing as the quarantined evidence. It's quarantined not because it has viruses. It's quarantined because the prosecution can't look at it. They've been alerted to it, that this evidence is in law enforcement custody, federal law enforcement custody. FBI or DOJ has it. And it could inform this case. But it was obtained from an attorney, which means it could be attorney-client privileged. So the implication here, the assumption here that's reasonable to make is it's one of Comey's attorneys, which could mean it's Daniel Richman, the person who supposedly Comey used to leak to the New York Times, who potentially this whole case is based on, and who we know has been interviewed. The quarantine evidence was obtained through judicial warrants in a previous government investigation. Well, we know that Daniel Richman was investigated. The government is not aware of any involvement by the defendant in the prior review of this evidence. Or other potential privilege holders. So it could involve more than one person. So maybe Baker's involved here. Maybe Ribicki is involved here. I don't know. But this is highly intriguing. The filter team hasn't reviewed the material yet, but their job would be to identify it and to segregate the potentially privileged material that's within it from the evidence obtained through the previous mentioned attorney. The protocol that's being proposed for handling it would safeguard claims of attorney-client privilege, and the filter team would give access to the privileged holders, meaning Comey or anybody else, to see if they want to assert their claim. Some interesting things here. The defense prefers to challenge the underlying search warrant first. That's why Comey's team isn't agreeing to the filter team yet. That's why they're not opposing the filter team. They're opposing the protocol that DOJ is wanting to set up here for the team, which is for it to start now. Instead, Comey's team wants to challenge the underlying search warrant first. It's not clear to me yeah, okay. They want to challenge the search warrant that was used to obtain this evidence in the first place from the attorney. I'm feeling pretty strongly this has to do with Daniel Richman, which also leads me to think more and more that Daniel Richman is person 3. The language here indicates that the putative privilege holders are not Comey and Fitzgerald, but it's perhaps Daniel Richman. We know from media reports that he has met with investigators. We also know that in the Arctic Haze media leak investigation, Comey provided his iPhone. That may have informed them and enabled them to get a search warrant of Daniel Richman. They may have used hey, we have contacts from Comey with Daniel Richman, subject matter XYZ. We want a search warrant for Daniel Richman's iPhone and other devices. That's speculation on my part, but hope that makes sense. And during the Arctic Haze investigation, they interviewed Richman as well as others, and ultimately it was concluded that there was not sufficient evidence to criminally charge any person, including Comey or Richman. Whatever documentation they created in Arctic Haze that says that is going to be turned over to Comey. These declassified documents that we got this summer that still have some redactions, but a lot have been lifted, are going to be used in this case. And doesn't it make more and more sense why we got this media leak information this summer? In fact, as I'll get to later in the episode, basically everything that was declassified this past summer by Ratcliffe, Gabbard, Patel, Bondi, everything is showing up in the investigations that are happening now and in the court cases that are happening now. There's a method to the declassification we saw this summer. There's a strategy. It's very clear now. There's a strategy. They declassified this stuff so it could be more easily used in court cases. And that is damn exciting. When you think about the stuff that was declassified this summer, Durham Annex, classified version of the 2016 ICA, the internal review for the CIA having to do with how they handled and constructed the ICA, the media leak investigations, the Adam Schiff HPSCI leak investigation, the Clinton Foundation timeline, the mid-year exam classified appendix. We are in for some damn good times, folks. Some highly interesting times. All of that D-class foreshadowing. All right, back to this. There's a hefty amount of redaction still on the memos related to the Arctic Haze media investigation. But these sections right here are the most intriguing. This one starts off, although Richmond later told the interviewing agents Comey never asked him to talk to media, comma, redaction, redacted, and redacted 3 pages. If we can learn what's under all those, which I think we will in this case, we'll see how they arrived at deciding to charge, I think. We also see here one place that's not redacted. It says Richmond did not know who gave Schmidt the classified information. That would be the classified information that had to do with the Clinton plan intelligence, Renteria memo, those things. Richmond acknowledged he had many discussions with Schmidt about the article that came out in the New York Times, which was the focus of the Arctic Haze investigation. And Richmond talked to him as a special government employee for the FBI. And even after he resigned as a SGE, which he was one of Comey's attorneys, which fits with this right here, doesn't it? The evidence in the government's custody was obtained from an attorney, and they used a judicial search warrant to get it, and it was part of a previous government investigation, probably Arctic Haze. We also know from media reports that investigators met with Durham about his media leak investigation, Tropic Vortex, which in some way was potentially informed by or somehow connected to the other leak investigations, Siren's Lure, Genetic Christmas, Foggy Falls, Echo's Fate, all of them. Somehow they're all connected in this big nebulous thing of media leaks to try and control the narrative related to Russiagate, Trump, and all of these things. I'd really like to see, and I think we will learn, what is in the 1A package, which has classified information about the Tropic Vortex investigation, which that one focused on Baker and Rybicki and their leaks to the New York Times that was supposedly authorized by Comey. And then we'll get the USA Durham memo, which recommended no prosecution of Baker or Comey or anyone else for the unauthorized disclosure of classified information. Actually, it was unclassified. The information wasn't even classified. It was unauthorized public disclosure. The information wasn't classified. Hercules, get your bone. I kind of want him to switch toys because I don't want him to okay. Now, a filter team could slow things down in this case, and whether they say so or not, I think both sides may prefer that. Because if you recall, the prosecution team was only just put together days ago. They're like a week old. They're literally, when you guys listen to this episode, they're going to be like 8 days old. The lead prosecutors in this thing that came from North Carolina. What is it? Lemons and Diaz, I think. They haven't even been there 2 weeks. They haven't even been there 10 days. So they're just now, as they admitted to the judge, we're just now getting our hands around the discovery to look at what we got to turn over. So I don't think a filter team coming in, even though it might mean a delay, I think they would welcome the delay. I also think Comey's team would welcome the delay. Because this thing, as I was pointing out, is moving pretty fast already. And judges always want things to move as fast as possible, pretty much. So, all right, through the filings that were made before 3 p.m. that day, I went through those on the last episode. Here are the links I used for this article. All right, let's go to my next thread. It's going to be this one. All right. Today, 10:14. That's today, right? Yeah, 10:14. For a little while, for a few minutes more, it's still 10:14. Comey notified Judge Nachmanov that he is filing a motion to dismiss this case based on unlawful appointment of Halligan. This will need to be resolved in an out-of-district court. And so his team is letting the judge know, hey, we're going to make this motion which could kill this case, and it's going to have to be heard in another court. So this is like a courtesy thing. We're filing it here, letting you know. And they had already said they were going to challenge it. And as I was talking about earlier, I may have been right in my thread about them they wanted to get the information on Halligan. Here's something interesting. Okay. I mean, this is interesting in itself. It's going to be fun to watch, or at least interesting to see what their argument is and whether or not they prevail on it. And you know what you can be sure of? You can be sure that people who don't like Trump and think of Lindsay Halligan as being Trump's personal attorney, which she was, and a beauty contestant for one of his pageants, which she was. And so they think there's like this weird relationship there. And they also don't like Trump, which means they don't like anybody who works for him. If Comey doesn't win on this, they're going to say the judge is crooked. But then on the right side, people who love Trump and tend to love everyone who works for him and who hate Comey and want to see him fail in every way. If Comey does not, or if Comey does succeed in getting this case dismissed for unlawful appointment, they'll say the judge is crooked. Do you know what we're going to say? I don't know yet, because we haven't seen the documents. Well, we're going to read the documents and we're going to decide whether or not we agree with the argument presented in the documents, because that's what we do here. Or at least that's what we try to do here. And I noticed in this document here, notifying the court, that one of the cases cited, I decided to look up the cases cited. United States v. Garcia, blah, 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 blah. United States versus Giroud, et al., blah, 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 numbers. And I noticed it said New Jersey was the district, and it was from 2025. The other one is in Nevada from September 2025. So I looked at the New Jersey one because you know what I remembered? I remembered that there was a kerfuffle about the appointment of Alina Habba. And I thought, I wonder if that's connected to that. And by golly, it was. One of the cases referenced in this filing, United States versus Giroud, concerns the unlawful appointment of Alina Habba as a special attorney, quote unquote, for New Jersey after she had already served her 90-day acting period and the Senate failed to appoint her. The Senate failed to approve her appointment. I should have written. And so a case that was brought under her that she signed off on is challenged because they're saying she was unlawfully appointed, and it's been appealed to the Third Circuit, which it's pending there. But what happened in that case is that Trump nominated her to be the United States Attorney for New Jersey. The Attorney General appointed her, back in March to be the interim United States attorney, but that term expired. There's only I think it's 90 days. It's either 90 or 120. I think it's 90. And then when that expired and the Senate had not acted, you may remember there was a bunch of I don't know, there was kind of a Donnybrook going on. It's a Texas term, or I think of it as a Texas term. There was a Donnybrook that took place between the Senate and the judiciary and Trump about why they hadn't approved all of his people, and they didn't approve Haba, and instead Desiree Grace was appointed to serve as the first assistant U.S. attorney, which is what is done when the appointment fails to be confirmed. It's whoever's the assistant then becomes the U.S. attorney. Well, Attorney General Bondi did something unprecedented, according to this filing anyway. She decided to make Ms. Haba a quote-unquote special attorney under 28 U.S.C. 515, which I think is one of the clauses that we've come across before, and I'll get to. I could be wrong, but I think we've come across that statute right there, that power that the AG has in a different matter, a different case. So that's still pending whether or not Alina Haba is lawful. And the thing is that the way the founder set it up is that it's Congress who defines through statutes, through the law, what these offices can and can't do, the attorney's offices, and the appointment methods for those offices. The president gets to nominate people, and the AG gets to nominate people, but it's Congress who confirms them. Now, if you guys remember, now I'm going to get into something. I'm going to say something, and I think I'm going to cause some dissonance, and I may ruffle some people. My intention is not to do that. My intention is for us to think about this more carefully, and for us to not be, for us to be intellectually honest here. Okay. You may remember that there was broad and enthusiastic agreement on the political right with this same argument or similar of someone not being lawfully appointed to an office of U.S. attorney, or as a special attorney, whatever you want to call it, or perhaps a special counsel, which counsel is another word for attorney, right? There was broad and enthusiastic agreement on the political right with this same argument or similar when it came to the appointment of Jack Smith as special counsel. Judge Cannon was cheered by MAGA when she granted the motion to dismiss the classified documents case based on that argument. Remember? The superseding indictment against Trump in the classified documents case down in Florida was granted. I mean, the superseding indictment was dismissed because special counsel Smith's appointment violated the Appointments Clause of the United States Constitution. And I remember a lot of MAGA, talked to me or agreed with that idea that Jack Smith was illegitimate, that he was unlawfully appointed. And I got lots of comments as we went through that case. Those of you who are with me, you know, we went through almost every single filing in that case, as well as the J6 case. And Ed Meese had his argument, and he made this filing at SCOTUS that Jack Smith was illegitimately appointed. And if I remember right, there was some indicator that Thomas was at least interested in hearing that, but it never made it. We never got to learn whether or not that was the case at SCOTUS, whether or not they agreed that Smith was unlawfully appointed. And if you guys remember back then at that time, I was of two minds about it. And I occasionally caught grief on a couple of shows I used to be on, because not badly, by the way. But I was challenged on it on air a couple times, and I couldn't. I understood it, and I remember reading Ed Meese's filing, and I remember reading Trump's filing for his motion to dismiss because Smith was unlawfully appointed. And I remember reading Smith's response to that. And I remember saying that, and I still am of this opinion today, that I lean towards Smith having been unlawfully appointed because he was not a Senate confirmed U.S. attorney. But I was not, and I'm still not, fully convinced that Jack Smith as special counsel was entirely illegitimate, because the AG does have the power to hire, appoint, and authorize what are called inferior officials to detect and prosecute crimes. And that's Section 533. 28 U.S.C. Section 533. The Attorney General can also commission attorneys, and he basically extends his authority to them under 28 U.S.C. 515. And guess what? That's what Alina Habba was appointed under, was 28 U.S.C. 515. That's what Bondi appointed her under. Bondi used the same statute, the same section of U.S. Code, 28 U.S.C. 515, to make Alina Habba a quote-unquote special attorney to run the U.S. Attorney's Office in the District of New Jersey, after the Senate failed to confirm her, and after she'd already used up her interim period. Okay, and that is now being challenged as an unlawful appointment. And that's the same way in which Jack Smith's appointment was challenged, and that challenge was granted by Judge Cannon, and MAGA loved it and celebrated it. So here we are, a little over a year later, because Judge Cannon granted the dismissal of Jack Smith's case in July of 2024, right? So here we are a little over a year later, and the shoe's literally on the other foot. And Comey's team is going to wants his case dismissed based on the unlawful appointment of Lindsay Halligan. And they're citing this matter in the Third Circuit on the unlawful appointment of Alina Habba. And it's they're very, very, very similar situations, circumstances using the same U.S. code. They're neither Alina Habba or Lindsay Halligan have been U.S. Senate confirmed as attorneys for these districts. So if Jack Smith was illegitimate, isn't Alina Habba and Lindsay Halligan illegitimate? Or if Alina Habba is legitimate, her appointment, if Lindsay Halligan's legitimate, then isn't Jack Smith legitimate? And Judge Cannon got it wrong. Like I said, I'm of two minds. I really am. Because I get that they're not Senate confirmed. And what's supposed to happen, folks, when there's not a Senate confirmed U.S. attorney, it's supposed to go to the assistant or the next person in line, the person who's longest serving and is highest rank in the office is supposed to inherit it and run the office until there is a Senate confirmed appointed attorney. Here, I got to stop the dog. He's starting to tear this ball up. This dang dog. chewed a big hole in this ball, and I didn't find all the pieces of it. Oh God. So either he's gonna pass it out one end or pass it out the other soon. At least it's not nearly as big of a piece as the last thing as things that have gotten stuck in him before. Good Lord. Okay, prayers up for Hercules. All right. Where was I? So yeah, we got to figure this out. Or not, that's not what I should say. This is a moment for us to confront the dissonance that we have or may have here on this matter and recognize that what's, we got, I made a silly joke here. It's now that we're at this junction, is the goose going to call the gander's kettle black, or will it say that this pot is no good? Because it's a situation where it's what's good for the goose is good for the gander, right? But I could also use the saying, the pot calling the kettle black. Both of those expressions can be applied to this circumstance that we're now facing here. And what we need to do is, besides make silly jokes, is solve our any cognitive dissonance we may have, or any potential for intellectual dishonesty that we may have. It can't be that it was right to dismiss, or it may not be. We haven't seen the entire argument yet. But boy, it'd be a hell of a thing if Patrick Fitzgerald, working for Comey, cites Trump's successful motion to dismiss Jack Smith in his effort to get Lindsay Halligan dismissed. I find it I think this is a highly interesting circumstance. Okay. What else happened here? There was something else, I believe. Something else. Okay, I got that. And I got this. Now back to the docket. Let's go back to the docket, because there were a couple more things filed after I wrote that thread. Okay, memorandums of understanding were signed by Jessica Carmichael, another one of Comey's attorneys who already had a clearance. I believe Fitzgerald also signed one, so that's just them signing the documents they have to sign in order to get the clearance to view the classified information. The judge granted Comey's motion number 35, which is the consent motion for a protective order. That's DOJ's on how they're going to handle and protect the classified information. There's the notice of intent. Or on consent motions, SIPA briefing schedule has been approved. And then we have two sealed filings here, a sealed motion by DOJ and a sealed document that has to do with the sealed motion. These two things. Don't know what they are. And I'm almost kind of surprised to see it, because remember we talked about, due to that Pacer hack, sealed things aren't being put on the docket to protect from another potential hack. So I don't know if it's actually that thing is there, or maybe it's just a placeholder document saying sealed motion, but the actual thing isn't uploaded, or if they feel secure enough to put this stuff up there. I don't know. So those are now you're caught up on the most recent filings in this case. All right. here we're going to go to my next thread, which I think this is super exciting. Yeah. How long was that first segment of the recording? Okay, cool. So this is going to be like a 1 hour to hour and a half episode is what I'm thinking. In that range. All right, so this New York Times article came out this evening, and this is what got me up late, and it's got me really excited. So New York Times has an article that says U.S. attorney was forced out after clashes over how to handle Russia inquiry. And this has to do with someone named Todd Gilbert, who him and his deputy U.S. attorney were forced out of the Western District of Virginia, not the Eastern one that's handling the Letitia James case and the James Comey case, but the Western one, which is Roanoke, Shenandoah Valley, Winchester, Lynchburg, all those cities. It's my area, which is beautiful, and I love this area of Virginia. I actually want to live further west than I am. I'm more central west. I want to be more west. All right, so an investigation. All right, actually, let me just grab this article. Nah, I'll do my thread because my thread's cool. I got a good thread. Here's the article. Yeah, I'll do my thread. All right, so career prosecutors at the Justice Department do not believe criminal charges are warranted from an investigation seeking to discredit an earlier FBI inquiry into Russia's attempt to tilt the 2016 presidential election. All right, actually, let me go to the article because I'm going to use my highlighter here. So this is Gilbert. This is Todd Gilbert right here. Career prosecutors at the Justice Department do not believe criminal charges are warranted. Familiar story, right? From an investigation seeking to discredit an earlier FBI inquiry into Russia's attempt to tilt the 2016 election in Trump's favor, according to people familiar with the matter. So, we have an FBI investigation, another word for that is inquiry, into Russia's attempt to throw the 2016 election to Trump, which isn't really a thing. That's kind of a media myth. Russia played both sides in 2016. We're expecting Hillary to win. They tried to hurt her through various leaks and bot networks and other things because they're a spoiler. They're troublemakers. That's the whole thing. They're troublemaking in the election. And since they expected Hillary to win, they made trouble for her in 2016. It wasn't about trying to help Trump win. That's not what they were trying to do. They were simply trying to cause trouble, sow doubt in the election, frustrate the U.S., muck up the U.S. election, and damage Hillary because they believed they had leverage over her because they had hacked her DNC, they had hacked her campaign and individuals associated with her, and they had blackmail on her. And through leaking, something that doesn't get talked about, by Russia using WikiLeaks to publish Podesta emails and other emails associated with Hillary, they were proving to the world, they were showing the world a bunch of stuff, which really, we'll set aside how much that stuff was actually relevant. It did change some people's minds, but it wasn't the entire thing that made her lose. But what they were really doing, what was more important, is through Russia providing those emails to WikiLeaks and then WikiLeaks leaking them, Russia was letting Hillary and her team know they had all of that access and they knew so much more. So it's, I know this about you, which means I know all of this other stuff. They didn't give everything to WikiLeaks that they had. And we know that our knowledge of that is partially informed by stuff we got this summer, the declassified Durham Annex that had to do with the Clinton Plan intelligence. All right. So we have this investigation into that, but then there's the Justice Department has another investigation ongoing now to see if criminal charges are warranted from an investigation seeking to discredit that inquiry. So there's two investigations here. There's the one into Russia's attempt in 2016, but then there's another one that was seeking to discredit that one. It's like those Russian dolls. It leaves unclear what political appointees of the Justice Department might do, given the breadth of Mr. Trump's demands that it pursue people he perceives as enemies. Already, the U.S. Attorney in the Western District of Virginia overseeing the case, Todd Gilbert, was forced to resign in August because he refused to sideline a high-ranking career prosecutor who found the evidence flimsy. People familiar with the matter said. Senior Justice Department officials had ordered Mr. Gilbert to open a grand jury investigation into whether anyone at FBI headquarters during and after the Biden administration had mishandled classified documents related to the Russia investigation. Okay, so U.S. Attorney Gilbert in the Western District of Virginia was ordered by DOJ, top brass, senior people, to open a grand jury investigation into whether anyone at FBI headquarters during and after the Biden administration, so that's Wray going into Trump, so Wray to Kash Patel, had mishandled classified documents related to the Russia investigation. I wonder if this has to do with that prohibited access and the burn bags and all of those things that we heard about from Kash Patel. There's also been some chatter out there in the rumor mill about disagreements between Kash Patel and Todd Blanche and others in DOJ. Remember about 6 months ago, and a lot of people thought it had to do with Epstein and Bongino and Kash and FBI and DOJ not getting along. Those stories have come up over and over again. And I've said in multiple episodes, I think that has a lot to do with people who used to work at DOJ or used to work at FBI, rumor mongering. I'm also wondering if some people didn't possibly mishandle documents, including classified documents related to the Russia investigation, got caught, and they're trying to frame things in a way that's favorable to them. And they're trying to create the appearance of DOJ and FBI not being on the same page about these things. Either way, Gilbert was told to open up a grand jury investigation into whether anyone at FBI headquarters during and after the Biden administration had mishandled classified documents related to Russia. Even as news of Mr. Gilbert's departure over the summer raised concerns, he was only in that position for like 38 days, about turmoil inside the Justice Department. The events leading up to it have remained unclear until now. The new details highlight how Mr. Trump's push for criminal prosecutions of those he sees as enemies has led to crises inside multiple U.S. attorneys' offices, including the Western and Eastern districts of Virginia, the state I live in. Mr. Gilbert was a longtime Republican legislator in Virginia, including Speaker of the House. He was quickly ordered to take up a case championed by FBI Director Kash Patel and his deputy Dan Bongino after they learned that the classified documents have been found in burn bags at the FBI. So someone either in the Biden admin or early in the Trump admin moved some important classified documents into burn bags. But they got caught, it seems. For decades, classified documents have been retained on computer servers. When printouts are made of sensitive documents, officials often dispose of them by burning the papers as a security measure. Mr. Patel and Mr. Bongino are among the Trump loyalists who have pressed for an investigation to determine whether senior FBI officials at the time had conspired to protect former FBI and CIA officials by hiding or destroying such documents. If true, that's a huge scandal. And I've discounted this story of burn bags at FBI, and that like as if there was only one copy of I remember Patel saying that the Durham Annex was in one of these, if I remember. And I remember thinking, this is just dumb, as if that's the only copy of it. And I still don't think it's the only copy of it, but perhaps it was a copy of it and they were trying to hide something about an investigation that was using it. But I still think this burn bag thing is more narrative, because it's like, it makes a really good story. Kash Patel had a really good and compelling story, a sensational story about burn bags at FBI headquarters and prohibited access that he told Joe Rogan. And people have run with it. And I'm not complaining about it. And I don't mean any insult to Kash. I just think it's a lot of narrative. I think it's kind of like when Trump said he found gold in the walls in the White House. I think it's, yeah, I think it's narrative to, I think it's I was thinking about this before I started recording, because I knew I was going to get to this point. I think it's a way of saying things you can't say yet. So what you do is you tell a story, because people communicate and remember they communicate in stories, they remember stories. And I think that and we all do this in a much smaller way, where we tell a story that is maybe not exactly the truth. It's not the way you would tell a judge under oath how things happened. But you can come up with ways to say things that are often playful or sensational, because it just makes for a better story, and it allows you to say things that you want to tell the other person for whatever reason, maybe to amuse them, maybe to keep their interest, maybe to flirt, to impress. This happens all the time in public speaking. Heck, I do it whenever I'm in the mic with you guys and I talk about my dogs. I'll make light of things they engage in. I'm serious about the spiky ball here. He really did go for a hole in it. That wasn't a story, but we all do this. Like I can't think of an example I've told recently on the show. I'll try to think of one. I hope you guys know what I'm talking about. We tend to do it in very small ways that we don't really think of, because it's not lying. It's exaggerating for effect or embellishing for effect. And when a law enforcement person does it, like the FBI director or his deputy, they can use this technique to convey information that they otherwise aren't really supposed to say. So Kash can't tell you exactly what's going on with an investigation, or shouldn't. He can't tell you the facts of it, the investigative steps yet, because it would compromise the investigation. He can't leak to media, as Comey is accused of doing, certain things to characterize the FBI in a certain way, although I think he does, actually. But what he can do is tell a story that isn't literally true, but it conveys the information he intends and wants to convey. I hope that makes sense. Okay, yeah, so stuff is burned as a security measure. Mr. Patel and Mr. Bongino are among the Trump loyalists, blah, blah, blah. There have been a number of unusual facets to the investigation. The Justice Department tends to try to closely control national security-related investigations in a particular office or team. But in this instance, DOJ has dedicated multiple U.S. attorneys' offices to a set of interconnected issues, all centered on an effort to show misconduct in the Russia investigation. We're cooking, boys and gals. Bondi DOJ is cooking. Cash's FBI is cooking. We have multiple U.S. attorneys' offices investigating misconduct in the Russia investigation. Federal prosecutors in Western Virginia, rather than D.C., have been assigned a document investigation on the legal theory that the jurisdiction was there because the FBI has a classified document storage facility in Winchester. You know what's there, guys? Do you know what the FBI did in Winchester, Virginia during the Russia investigation? That is where they sent the Clinton Plan Intelligence to a place called Mission Ridge. That's where the fusion cell was. The data that we got from Dutch intelligence, the Russian memoranda, the Russian reports that included the Clinton Plan Intelligence, her plan to frame Donald Trump and to stir up a scandal against Trump to distract from her email server, went into a fusion cell that was based at an FBI facility in Winchester, Virginia. It was called Mission Ridge. And originally that Clinton Plan Intelligence was called the Mission Ridge Data. And it was highly compartmentalized in that fusion cell. When we went through the Durham Annex in episode whatever it was, I was very excited about what it revealed about that. This episode, the classified appendix to the Durham report. And I have no idea where it is in here that I talked about it. I don't know. I don't even know why I went over here to this. But anyway. Put on your Punisher gear. That's how exciting this is. All right. Since the investigation began, there has been little indication of any grand jury activity, though a host of former FBI officials voluntarily set for interviews. Witnesses in the case were questioned by a combination of civil lawyers, not criminal prosecutors, from the Western District of Virginia, as well as criminal prosecutors from the Eastern District of Virginia, and FBI agents. To reassure witnesses that they were not targets of the investigation, witnesses were allowed to be interviewed at their lawyers' offices rather than at government buildings. Defense lawyers who have clients caught up in the case have expressed bafflement at what possible crime could have been committed. And one witnessed approach earlier this year was told the investigation was being conducted at the specific direction of Mr. Patel, who used to work for Devin Nunes on the House Intelligence Committee and knows damn well where all the roads lead. Shortly after Mr. Gilbert took over as U.S. Attorney, senior Justice Department officials instructed him to open an investigation into the handling of secret documents related to Russian intelligence reports. Mission Ridge. Clinton Plan Intelligence. After reviewing the evidence, Mr. Gilbert told his superiors that he did not believe there was sufficient evidence to justify a grand jury investigation. Frustrated by that answer, aides to Attorney General Pam Bondi and her deputy Todd Blanche blamed a senior career attorney in the office who they believed had swayed Mr. Gilbert. His name was Zachary Lee. He's a veteran prosecutor with more than 2 decades of experience involving public corruption and narcotics, among other issues. Justice Department officials ordered Mr. Gilbert to replace Mr. Lee with Robert Tracy. I'm actually not sure how to say this last name. It could be Tracy. I'm just going to say Tracy as his deputy. These people said. After Lee was demoted, senior department officials suspected Mr. Gilbert was still primarily consulting Mr. Lee. So he did it. Gilbert demoted Robert Lee and replaced him with Robert Tracy. But after he did that, people at DOJ suspected Gilbert was still primarily consulting with Lee, whom they viewed as a holdover from the Biden administration, even though he had been hired during the George Bush administration and he was promoted during the first Trump administration. At one point, Mr. Blanche spoke directly to Mr. Gilbert and offered him more resources to pursue the case, according to one person familiar with the events. I wonder if that one person is Gilbert. Pressed to further sideline or remove Mr. Lee, Mr. Gilbert refused. These people said. Department officials then informed Mr. Gilbert that he would be fired, and he resigned shortly after, posting a GIF on social media from the movie Anchorman that said, boy, that escalated quickly. He was only there for 38 days. Or in that position for 38 days. After that happened, Mr. Tracy stepped in as the acting U.S. attorney. Mr. Lee, who then left the office. So, now we have an acting U.S. attorney there. Mr. Tracy, which was who DOJ wanted to be there. See how these chess pieces got moved around? The investigation appears to have petered out. Maybe. While investigators have interviewed a number of former FBI officials, there has been little observable activity in the case for weeks, and several people familiar with the work described it as essentially over. Maybe. In recent weeks, however, Trump appointees have secured critical indictments against some of Trump's nemesis. And those were over objections of career prosecutors, such as in the Eastern District of Virginia, Mr. Siebert, who was a Trump appointee, informed DOJ officials that there was insufficient evidence to bring charges against Letitia James and against James Comey. Career prosecutors viewed a possible mortgage fraud case against Ms. James as fatally flawed and weak. They also considered the investigation into whether Mr. Comey had lied to Congress in 2020 as unworthy of charges. Trump then fired Siebert, replacing him with White House lawyer with no experience as a prosecutor, Lindsay Halligan, who quickly won grand jury indictments against both Comey and James. Both defendants deny wrongdoing and have accused Trump administration of misusing the criminal justice system. Other prosecutors have been under pressure to deliver big-name indictments on politically sensitive cases sought by Mr. Trump and his allies. In Baltimore, charges could be filed any day against John Bolton in a long-running investigation into whether he mishandled classified information. That same office in Baltimore has also been assigned to investigate Senator Adam B. Schiff to determine if he engaged in mortgage fraud. In Philadelphia, the U.S. Attorney is overseeing an investigation into whether intelligence officials lied about an intelligence assessment drafted in the waning days of the Obama administration, the 2016 ICA. That assessment, blah, 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 then they spin it. Now, look who these authors are. It's Devlin Barrett and Michael Schmidt. Both of those guys were investigated in the media leak investigations. Devlin Barrett was at the Wall Street Journal at the time, and he got leaks from McCabe and Lisa Page that the IG investigated. And I went over in my episode. Actually, I'll show my YouTube page. In my episode, going over the IG report on McCabe in light of the Comey indictment. In this episode, I talked about Devlin Barrett. That was Comey and Lisa Page's contact at the Wall Street Journal, who he leaked information to about the Clinton Foundation and email investigations in order to make himself look good. And Michael Schmidt is the guy that Daniel Richman was speaking to at the New York Times. So, and these two guys are who wrote this article. Now, I think that's a bit ironic or it's just interesting given everything going on. But it also makes me think these guys, they've got some contacts in the DOJ and FBI world, obviously. And I think this is an article where it's a great example. Actually, it's a fantastic example of why reading the New York Times, Politico, Wall Street Journal, Fox News, all these legacy mainstream media outlets, okay, that are so often bashed by people on the right, including Trump, okay, and Elon and other people. They call them full of lies. They're garbage. It's a rag and all this stuff. It's all lies. All right. It pays to read this type of stuff. If you have the attitude that it's all BS, you can't trust anything they say, then you're just gonna miss out on a lot of things. And it's a matter of developing a good filter and having good discernment. And so knowing that the sources for this, knowing that the authors have previously been caught up in media leak investigations from FBI and DOJ, knowing that there's been a lot of people fired from DOJ and FBI or let go or who resigned in protest, knowing that according to people familiar with the matter said, knowing that those are phrases used in favor, instead of saying anonymous, people who could not be named, recognizing the spin that's on the article. This article is all about, the point of this article is to try and make you think that there's this manipulated way that DOJ and FBI are going after Trump's enemies, and that there's something unethical, something illegitimate, something wrong about that, which, hey, there may be. We may find out that, you know what, they went about this the wrong way. I have some concern. Personally, I have some concern that DOJ and FBI are going about some of this stuff in the wrong way. It's not a big concern. It's not anything that really bothers me big time. Like, I'm not, but there are some things where I'm like, Mostly it's just me thinking, and kind of contrasting within in my mind, if if Obama went about it the same way as Trump is going about it, and if Obama and his DOJ went about it the same, like if Obama appointed his personal attorney to be a U.S. attorney and then prosecute somebody Obama didn't like, how would I feel about that? And what would I think of that? Would I think that was unethical? Was it crooked? Was it manipulated? Possibly. I think I would. So why is it not the same thing when Trump does it? The fact that I like him and largely agree with him on politics isn't a good enough reason. It matters how you do things. I hope everybody listening and watching agrees. It doesn't just matter that you do the right thing. It matters that you do the right thing in the right way. It doesn't just matter that there's accountability. It matters that that accountability is achieved in an accountable and high integrity way. I don't know that that's not happening here. I'm giving the benefit of the doubt that it is happening in a high integrity way. There's lots of rumors going around that it's not. And this article contains those, and this article leans on those rumors and on that narrative. And so in reading it, I got to be cognizant of that. But in between the spin, in between the anonymous sources, the narrative that the New York Times and these authors are trying to get across, there's some highly dasting, very exciting tidbits of information about these investigations, and it paints a picture that I really, really like, and I think is, I'll use a word I haven't used in a while, it's titillating. It's incredibly exciting to think of multiple U.S. Attorney's Office, Eastern and Western District of Virginia, Baltimore, Philadelphia, all working on RussiaGate-related cases at the same time. And all of those, I can trace pieces of them, some of the things we know about them, to D-Class we got this summer. Ooh. Those rumors about a grand conspiracy case are starting to seem more legit. And the amount of turmoil we see and people resigning and people protesting it and the leaks to the media, those kind of things tend to happen when there's a big, big case or a number of really big cases on the way that are ruffling the deep state or ruffling the swamp. The swamp is uneasy. The media swamp, the DC political swamp is uneasy about these things. Now, here's the other thing about legacy media. I want to make the point. This is a fantastic example of why it pays to pay attention to these media outlets and to have in your mind and have the discernment and the filter put in when you do, so that you can gather the information from them that is actually useful and good. And as much as we can criticize the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Fox News, whoever, for having their own spin, lying, getting things wrong, manipulating what they say, you can say the exact same things about alternative media and influencers. They do that too. Influencers and alternative media also lie. They also get things wrong. They also spin and manipulate what they say to push their own narrative and their own whatever. And you should have discernment and a filter in when consuming them. It's all about having awareness of who it is you're getting your information from and having a good filter and good discernment for what is bad information, what is useless information, what spin and narrative, and what is useful, what's solid. And it's something you have to constantly develop and reconfigure and adapt, because this is the info war. And that's just part of being on this battlefield. By the way, in reading this article, I got really excited about it and I wrote this thread. And then I decided to make this meme because as I was reading it for the first time, I was making faces like this. We might see before the end of this year, guys, before Christmas, there may be indictments against John Bolton, Letitia James, James Comey, Adam Schiff, and people who worked on the 2016 ICA, possibly people at FBI who handled classified material related to RussiaGate. Imagine Christmas rolls around and we have active cases against all of those. And I don't even mean that they're like I don't even know if any of those people are guilty. I haven't seen the indictments. But to me, it just means like the advancement of discovering the truth of how RussiaGate was manipulated. And all of it ends up it's all part of the witch hunt. It's all part of the hunt for that witch. All right. If you guys like this episode, go back over here. If you guys like this episode, if you found it useful, if you thought this episode was full of good and useful information, please go to my link tree. It's in my bio. It's on the information wherever you're watching. It's in the description of the show. And make sure you're following me at these places. Make sure you find a favorite place to watch. And I would really appreciate it if you went to my YouTube and hit subscribe. Even if that's not your primary place for viewing, I would really appreciate you subscribing over there and help me get my channel monetized. Heck, maybe if I can get it monetized, I'll start going live again. I think I have to be monetized, not monetized to go live. I think I have to have there's a threshold for being able to go live on YouTube. I need to look it up. But I tell you what, I'm not going to throw a number out right now. But if I can get, I'm going to think on it. I'm going to think of a number. But if I can get so far on YouTube, I'll go live again. And I'll do a live show and we can all chat. And I'm sorry, I've been thinking about it more and more about going live because I'm missing it. I like pre-recording this stuff, but I'm kind of missing, or I am missing, going live and answering questions from chat and talking back and forth. So please visit me on YouTube. Give me a like and a follow. And if you would please, if you really like this show and you want to let me know it, you can use one of my affiliate links like Benson Honey Farms, Bootleg, or Manly Cans. You can go to ko-fi.com, buy me a cup of coffee. Or if you really want to be awesome and super, super supportive, you can go to justhuman.substack.com and get a paid subscription, $7 a month. Basically, you're buying me one high-grade caffeine coffee snob. I only drink snob. I'm a snob. I'm a coffee snob. So I only drink snobby or snobbish coffee. So basically you're buying me a cup of high quality coffee per month. And in exchange, per month, I'm giving you however many dozen or so episodes covering these cases. And it's going to have to be dozens of episodes a month if I'm going to keep up with all of these RussiaGate related cases, right? Good times. Good times ahead. All right. Good times are here, not ahead. Good times are here. All right. God bless each and every one of you. Stay positive. Work on your filter. Work on your discernment. Remember, we're all just human. We all have to keep continuously calibrate our filters and our discernment for the battlefield that we're on. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode. I'll see you next time.